I go and buy 20, another one buys one. So his cost of production will be too high than mine, because for the same vaccine, which is for 50 doses, will be administered in my 20. However, if you take one this Friday, it means you'll have to pay that vet the next Friday again for the same vaccine, as well as the additional costs of the vet services. So Levi Jones, cost of one goat breed to Kenya. So Levi Jones, it depends with which breed. So is it for meat, or for instance, is this the Boa for meat, the Savannah or Red Kalahari, or is it the Sanen? So the prices usually range, but from my previous, mostly for breeding, the breeding bucks range between $1,200 to $1,500. So those are not the auctioned ones. So for the show ones, they skyrocket, even they are more expensive. But at least a reasonable breed will be between $1,300 to $1,600 per buck. So you realize that if I can rewind the time, for me, I began with the local goats, not even for breeding. So I began as a farmer with the distinction that I had given you initially. So I just said I need to have. I'm a friendly guy, so I told myself sometimes I have friends, so I need to have some few goats that. When you're having a come together, we have some goats to slaughter, and then we have the traditional herbs to drink and discuss fine things in life. So later on, I realized that my initial stock was 5 goats and 1 male, which over time I was fortunate enough from my initial 5, 3 had twinning rate, so the population increased. So later on, I came through my research and also visiting other guys. I came to realize that in livestock, it's not about the numbers. It's about the genetics. So if I have like 100 goats and those goats cannot, the 100 kids, but it will take me another 2 years for those kids to get to maturity level so that they can be served and for me to get my goat dividends. Then I said, by then it will have cleared your entire bush, it will have cleared your entire pockets, because the operational costs of a goat is not, some ask, and they think when you get a goat, you just get some few ropes and tie the rope, and the goat will eat the grass, and you will milk the goat. So for purposes of productivity, if you are thinking about venturing it, is like you must be sure with what you're getting into. So if you might be in a cold area, so if you're in an extremely cold area, you're passionate for goat might, from my take is you're passionate for goat you might halt it if you're planning to do it in that region, because you will have incidents of pneumonia a lot. So that's why I usually say it's better to do your scanning. Alternatively, if you're still passionate, it's better to go and release the land elsewhere in a semi-arid area, where at least hot areas. So goats, you realize that goats do well during hot season. The dry seasons is when they do best, because when it rains, you realize that their body conversion rate is low, as well as it will also limit their time for going to the pastures. Because if you release the goats, you see the goats are not like human beings, so they have like a standard breakfast time. So if the morning dew is a lot, it's not advisable to release your goats to go to the free range, especially when it has rained, because you might think that you are working towards having healthy goats, but you're bringing foot and mouth diseases. So you realize that there will be more incidents of limping of the goats during the rainy season. So ensure that you must have a good strategy towards stocking. That is one, where are you sourcing it? Then 2, the type of breeds. So for me, I have a dairy as well as meat goats. So for the dairy goat, it's not for commercial purposes, it's just for farm use. However, it's something which based on demands and the goat milk benefits is something which will scale up probably in due course. Reason being, sometimes when you're starting a project, you don't need to over diversify. What do I mean by over diversify? So in year 1 and year 2, you are safer if you concentrate on one line. So let's say you are looking towards doing dairy goat as well as milk goats. So unless you do it on a pilot basis where you say my plan A is to stock the meat breeds. However, it won't cause any harm for me to have two to three goats of dairy, so that I don't buy milk. Yet I'm doing farming and I'm purchasing. I might want some organic touch of milk. So for that purpose, that one can assist you to know what are the challenges when you're breeding the dairy goats while doing your A project. The A project being the meat breeds. So if you want to venture also towards sheep, because you see another breeder is also doing goats as well as sheep, it's a good thing, because in livestock farming you must have a risk mitigation plan as well as diversification, so that when project A is not yet fit for the market, then project B might come in to offset some operational costs. However, it's better to master one. So if you are dealing with goats, deal with the goats first for at least 1 to 2 years, concretely. Because if you didn't have prior knowledge based on your bringing, if you've never run a farm, meaning your parents were never, they never had any animal on their compound or anywhere, so you are safer to concentrate on one line of production, so that once you have hacked that one line of production, then you can be able to do a scale up. Okay. So the scaling up means I begin with 10 goats. Now a goat has a gestation period of 150 days, which is roughly 5 months. So once you do that the first phase of breeding, then you have some kids. So you realize that there's an internal feeling of satisfaction the moment you see your project is taking some shape. So in round 1, you might have some challenges in terms of kidding. So probably, of course, you are a newbie. There are certain vaccinations that maybe you had not administered. However, if the load is with you, you might realize that out of the 10, you have, like, let's say 7 of them give some birth to healthy kids. Then now the healthy kids, you give them another like 3 months in terms of managing the kids and ensuring that they are well fed and the vitamins are intact, as well as to the vaccination. So once you are capable to have those 10 starting stock, 10 females and 1 male, plus the additional kids for another 3 months. So that is like 5 months plus another 3 months. So let's say like 5 plus 3, that is 8 plus 1. So you add 1 because not every goat will come on heat at the same time. However, the estrus cycle of a goat is 18 to 21 days. So once you're able to troubleshoot for those 7 to 9 months, and you have been able to sustain and you have not lost any goat from the initial stock, then at least you also have that sense of that sense in you, the drive that you have some. If you're a teacher, then you say a lesson plan or a plan for what you're doing. So having that plan, you realize that along the way, you can never have a bulletproof strategy. A bulletproof strategy means you saying, I'll have to attend around 10 farms. I have to visit guys. I have to, those doubts are not a breeder and a farmer. A farmer is a person who is a great risk taker by default. So if I say a farmer is like a farmer needs to have the heart of a lion, because in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, things might not go the way you like. So you must be able to be sure. For me, in my initial stages, I say roho ya simba. So in my first stages, I stock 5 animals, and then I realize 2 have died. I don't do the mourning. My mourning is by replacing the goats with another goat. However, before restocking, I must do the troubleshooting. Just the same way any other business, you do your troubleshooting and see, where did I go wrong? What did I miss? So that's why having a qualified and a vet who is able to speak to you, explain to you what is administering, and also guiding you as to the record keeping. So there are good vets and bad vets. So I'll not say bad vets, but I'll say, let me say unprofessional vets. So how do you know your vet is not a professional vet? Is that when the vet comes with his cooler box, he does whatever he's doing, no explanation. Your goat drops, one goat drops dead today. You again call him. He comes tomorrow again. He charges you for tomorrow. Another goat drops dead. No explanation to you. He just says, yeah, so it's the climate, it's everything. So then you have another batch of professional vet. Now, this professional vet comes to you and asks you. A professional vet will ask you that, one, just the way like you treat human beings, when you visit, when you're an outpatient, and the doctor starts by administering several injections without even asking you what your symptoms are, then you realize that what is the doctor treating? You get, so you feel as if you're not getting the right prognosis or diagnosis of your illness. So a professional vet needs to come and ask you, one, do you have your health record? Do you have like your health record book at the farm? So then, of course, if your answer is no, of course you're a beginner and you didn't know that you need to have a book that keeps records. And secondly, if your goats, for instance, don't have tags, so how are you tracking even in the first place? How are you even tracking the health records? So that's why pro tip is you ensure any livestock you stock, whether goat, sheep, or anything, you must tag it. Once you tag it, the next thing is you must have that health record, the health record book at the farm. So the health record book will be able to assist you. So for instance, let's assume you have a problem today. Then the vet comes. Then he says, what are the symptoms? What are the symptoms of the goat? So he says, for instance, incessant coughing by the goat. So then you need, then of course there's the troubleshooting part of since when. So you realize that at least with this vet, there's some sense of professionalism, because it's not an issue of just injecting and being paid, but it's an issue of him ensuring that he's mitigating the risk of reoccurrence as well as managing the disease itself. So you come to realize that if that vet cannot be able to ask you about the previous issue, then you're having a very serious challenge, because whatever's happened, if two goats have dropped dead, so high chances of another other goats dropping is high. However, so not all vets are unprofessional. Some might just be in a hurry. So as a farmer or a breeder by yourself, you need to ensure that you have that book at the farm. So when the vet comes, for me, I say at first I used to leave the veterinary do what he wants to do, but if you're in the business of if you're in the business of animals that you personally love and they are also part of your family, then you cannot just leave them in the hands of someone who does not even tell you what is happening. So for me, my basic rule is anytime I'm onboarding a vet, if the vet comes to my farm and does not, based on the symptoms, does not inform me what the illness is, then he's fired. Then the vet is clearly fired after that transaction, because he cannot. How do you treat something which you have not even informed me what the goat is suffering from, and is it infectious? So without knowing that, you realize that there are certain diseases that even affect the human being. So for instance, like the foot and mouth, you're not supposed to handle it with your bare hands, at least with the gloves. So you must ensure that you obey the health record book at the farm. The health record book, what does it entail? One, it entails the sick animals. So whenever a goat is sick, then you must record the sick animal, the symptoms, and what was administered by the vet. So for instance, I'll give a scenario. Personally, I'm not a vet, but based on the experience and engagement with the breeding space, respiratory illness, for instance. So if the goat was coughing incessantly, for instance, and the heavy breathing, so you realize that if it's a respiratory illness, at least the vet should inform you that this is a respiratory issue. So based on the temperature reading, he needs to do his diagnosis and also inform you the temperature of your goat. So based on that, you can be able to see and say, for proper planning. So if it is pneumonia, for instance, which mostly it requires vaccination of the CCPP, which goes a long way to, is a preventive approach. So without you knowing what you're suffering, what your goats are suffering from, you cannot be able even to do your risk mitigation plan, because you'll be operating blind. So the moment you see it's pneumonia, for instance, and you had done your vaccination, let's say 6 months ago, then you realize that, hey, I think I might not vaccinate now, because the moment an animal is sick, you cannot vaccinate at that time. You manage that illness first. Then once you're finished, then that's when now you can do the revaccination. So like the booster shots. So without having a reliable vet, you realize that you can have someone who just comes, and then for him, he's looking at the number of heads you have, so the number of livestock you have. Then he says, this one is pneumonia, so we need to vaccinate all the flock. Then it will be another recipe for, it's another sad moment for you, because with livestock, especially the pneumonia can wipe your entire flock overnight if you've not done the prevention aspect. So if for instance you visited farms, you did all those things, but you did not factor in the vaccination angle, operational costs. So the operational costs will be on the basis of vaccination. So for me, I say on operational costs, I begin by two things. Top notch, the shepherd, because he's the one who stays with the animals from morning till evening. So if my shepherd is not happy, high chances in the evening, when I look at the goats will not also be in a healthy posture. So don't be too mean with your workers. So because they're the ones who wanajituma. So you must ensure that first line of defense, you have one guy, you have one worker who loves his job, is remunerated reasonably, and thirdly, he knows the symptoms of a goat that is ailing. Why? The moment you realize early that a goat is sick, high chances of it recuperating is high, as compared to one that you come and realize 10 days later, when the goat is dying, when it's at the ICU moment. So you realize that training is everything. So if you're a telefarmer, If you're a telephone farmer and yours is just to look at the CCTV and cross-checking what is happening without training whoever is on the ground, then your funnel is upside down, because you need to begin by the training, because he is your first line of risk management. Because without risk management being the training aspect, you realize that there are certain antibiotics with the advice of a vet. Those ones can be administered way early. For instance, how will you know that a goat is sick even without the vet? So you realize that very early in the morning, for instance, like coughing, excessively coughing, heavy breathing, and just like human beings, you realize that in the morning, if it's on free range basis, you realize that certain goat is lagging behind. So the goat doesn't want to go to pasture, or one is staggering or appearing as if it's over reasoning. It's like thinking heavily. So there's high chance that there's a certain bacterial issue with the goat, or it's not feeling well. So with that in case, you cannot leave a sick animal to go to free range. So that's why even if you're planning that, you say, hey, I have like 20 acres, I have like 30 acres. For me, I don't even need to buy any, let's say, hay, bomarodes, or any extra feeds. So you realize that that's where you go wrong, because at any given point in your farm, when you're doing your planning, you must have sick bay. So we have there are various units at the farm. So you realize that when you're starting, you'll visit your favorite TikToker, your favorite YouTuber, based on your area of your area of you have that favorite YouTuber who gives you hints, and or TikToker who gives you hints on goat farming. So then next you will call another fundi, a local fundi, and tell the fundi, hi, I want to start goat farming. Can you be able to construct a goat pen? Then of course the local fundi will say yes. So we can structure that. So, however, if you're planning to start a goat farm, just know that there are several units that you must have at the farm. So these units will be able to assist you to know while scaling up. So you don't need to begin with a very huge capital, whereby a raised goat pen is very expensive. So that's why I usually tell, even me, I began with a chicken coop. So a chicken house was my first structure. Right now, the goats live in a mansion, a raised structure. But that one has been over a stretch of 3 years is when I upgraded to a raised structure, based on the challenges of a ground structure. However, for me, I go with one rule. It's better to have 50 goats than to have one fanciful raised structure with 3 goats. Reason being, if someone visits your farm and says, hey, I've seen you're doing an amazing job, I saw your goat structure is very beautiful, then you say it's very expensive. This goat structure costed me around 150 to 200,000. Then the person checks inside the goat structure and sees 2 to 3 goats. I don't know how the 2 to 3 goats will return your investment. So that's why I usually say a raised structure is better in terms of management. However, if you're starting out, just get a ground structure. Get a ground structure. Once you have that ground structure, know which measurements, know how many animals you want to put in place. So if you're looking towards to have like a projection of 100 goats, and you can begin by one structure that is around 40 feet across. So that can be around like 30 iron sheets across. So on the ground structure, then you have another one layer of iron sheets just to block the wind from them, because the goats require ventilation. So you realize that without proper budgeting, you will spend your money on the wrong aspect without knowing what you're spending on. So one is just a basic structure for purposes of prevention from rain and adverse adverse weather. Then secondly, the greatest chunk of money should be on the goat stocking. So the genetics itself. So the genetics meaning it's better to stock an improved genetic of the male. So especially the male goat should be the finest creature on the farm, because a male goat determines 60% of your flock. So even if you begin with the local goats, so long as you have a very good male, that male will be able to transform the offsprings to a very impressive, improved offsprings while you get up the ladder. So you might have the intention of having the improved breeds like Boa, Savannah, and everything, which can be part of your strategic plan. But you go piecemeal. If you feel you have some financial muscles, you can even begin with the cross of Boa and Gala. So the cross of Boa and Gala has the immunity from the Gala side, the mother side, as well as the body mass from the father side. So those ones don't have, those ones are at least easier to manage as compared to the pure genetics from South Africa, because those ones, if you don't have experience on vaccination, you don't have experience on which antibiotics to administer, you don't have experience on deworming schedule, spraying schedule, then I'm telling you for sure, you will lose your investment, because without knowing what you are, without planning, then of course you plan again to fail without even necessarily planning. So that is the essence of you. For me, I usually say it's better give someone even 10,000 or 5,000 to avoid mistakes that I personally did. In any venture, in any niche that I get in, I'm very happy to give money, because the moment I give money, my concentration span is high. I don't want to lose anything because I've spent my money. But the moment you go somewhere and then it's free things, free things, you also not take it seriously by yourself. So if you're looking towards profitability, then you engage to several trainings. You can have some trainers, guys who are having some training sessions. Visit those farms, have hands on deck. Even if you're stocking, at least find ways of getting your hands dirty, because you cannot just say, for instance, Goat Master told me one Gala goat, male one is 16,000. Then you start calculating, one male, 16,000. So how many males should I have? Then you're taking 16,000 times, if I have like 100 of them, then I have my 160,000. Not knowing the operational, the challenge of the operational cost. So I'll say goat farming or sheep farming or livestock in general is a good venture. However, you must be prepared that, for instance, if you're saying that you want to like go full time on livestock farming, you must ensure that, one, you're not starting out. You cannot start out and then you're going full time. So if you have a job, you're better off to keep that job, because running a farm is expensive. So farming is the best lucrative business if you have a source of sustaining, or a source of income of sustaining it in its first stages. It's like an infant. You cannot have an infant and then you're saying, this kid is a doctor and the kid is 2 months. This kid is a doctor and Shaomoka. I'm now a rich guy because my kid is a doctor or an engineer. So there's the investment part. So the investment part is the most challenging aspect. So if that's why for me, I have a challenge when it comes to doing goat farming in your retirement, because I'll tell you for sure, if during your working time before retirement, if you never raised even a chicken or a goat or anything, then you have this crazy master plan a very serious bulletproof master plan where a professional has charged you even like $120 and selling you this is the master plan. You'll have a feedlot. These bulls, they'll be able to appreciate for these kgs. The best teacher is experience. So if you're planning to venture it in your retirement, then you start now. Start with the few goats. Then you do the scale up. That's why if you're getting into goat farming and you're going to the bank for heavy facility, at the first stage might not be advisable. So you better use other ways of pulling resources to get the initial stock. Once you master the act of the breeding or whichever the farming, then that's now where you can do the scale up. So for instance, if I'm a dairy goat farmer and if I'm into dairy goats, that's something which I'll advise someone in an urban setting, because in an urban setting you might not have a bigger opportunity of a bigger tracts of land to sustain meat breeds, unless it's short-term feeding, and then now you offload the goats. So in an urban setting, let's say if you're in Kiambu, you're in Juja, you're in Ruaka regions, for instance, there you realize that for instance, milk has goat milk has I'll say if anyone is doing dairy goat farming is also a pharmacist. A pharmacist to the extent that the guys with who are lactose intolerant are usually prescribed goat milk. So technically, as a breeder of dairy goats, you're also a pharmacist, but not certified by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. So in the first line of everything, you must, before you do scale up of your project, have the pilot. Most of my clients, I advise them on the bare minimum, at least because of numbers, at least 10 females and 1 male, you are good to go. You don't necessarily need to buy from me. You can even just begin from your local area or whoever you're buying it from. However, I always say, if the Agape Farm, thank you for joining. It's not yet late. We are still in the party. We're remaining with 30 more minutes. So if you're stocking, whether goat or sheep, you need to be able to see how reputable is the farm you are stocking from. The moment the farm is not reputable, based on your research or based on your interactions or based on referrals, for me, I always say, have the vaccination schedule intact. So have the vaccination schedule intact based on the region where the goat is coming from. So the vaccination schedule intact meaning, for me personally, if we, depending with where you source your animal, you must be able to have your own vaccination schedule. 1, CCPP is common in Kenya. So the pneumonia is a killer disease for goats in Kenya. So CCPP is a must for vaccination. It's a current occurrence, especially in Kenya. Then we have the PPR. The PPR now is another killer disease. So unfortunately for me, I paid my school fees through the Savannah breed, which I imported from South Africa way in 2020. And there's one peculiar disease in South Africa that I had not factored it in terms of, it's called Pasturella. It's like a shipping fever. So you can imagine losing $300 investment flying out the window. You feel depressed. But of course, as a farmer, as I told you, you must have the heart of a lion, and you go back and get another one, but when you're better informed. So for me, I say risk mitigation begins at the gate of your farm. So at the gate of the farm, meaning how the livestock come to your farm matters. So you don't mix your existing livestock with your old flock. That's a mistake that if you do it, you'll never forgive yourself, because you lose your investment. So have a quarantine area which is slightly far depending on the wind direction, because most of the illness are airborne. So for airborne diseases, you ensure that the direction of your